just really resonates with me, the word resilience. What does that mean to you? Like, do you feel like, I guess what I want to ask first, especially, is like, do you feel like we still have resilience? Do you feel like as a collective, we're going in a resilient direction? Like, what does resilience mean to you, and kind of how do you see it playing out now?
I, that's an awesome question. I think that the world today is, at least in the world that we live in, um, sort of first world problems. Our first world problems are not real problems. And we can order food from an Uber app. We can do anything we want, and we can be as absolutely mediocre as we want to be, and we're kind of rewarded for it. And so I don't think we're as resilient as what we should be. And I was talking, we were talking right before the podcast a little bit about an event that I just did last week. It was, what day is today? Tuesday. Yeah, we started a week ago at 10 p.m. and hiked the Grand Canyon. It was a 54-mile excursion, and it was one of the top 5 things that I've ever done in my life. And I've done a fair number of hard things, and we called it the masogi. So masogi is a Japanese word for basically kind of cleansing the soul to start the new year. And it was a Japanese tradition, and this was just kind of a cleansing of the soul. We had 13 men came together, and we went out and we did something very, very, very hard. And when I talk about very hard, I had guys in the group that had done multiple Ironman triathlons. They were extreme athletes. Myself as a Navy SEAL, Army Ranger was there. Other individuals that were just super high caliber, high performing individuals that we don't ex- accept mediocrity in our life as much as we possibly can. And we went out and we suffered together. And I think we as a collective, we shy away from suffering, and I think that's a mistake. I think that we need to do more suffering. Oftentimes, first world problems. Suffering is like, oh my God, my food showed up from the restaurant not hot enough, or it wasn't cooked. We have food. I remember the first time I went to Afghanistan in 2002, and I came back and I was just kind of disgusted with how we were living in the United States. I'm like, we have so much opulence, and we're not happy with what we have. Those people, I was like, this is a fourth world country. It's not even a third world country. They have nothing and they're happy about it. And so, I think there's something to be said about going out and doing hard things and suffering, and finding out where your edges are, and then push beyond those edges, and embrace that suffering, and then you just become a better person on the backside of it.
Mm. We don't suffer enough together. Do you think we suffer in silence?
Oh, 100%. I think we certainly suffer in the wrong way. I'm 100% guilty of that, suffering in silence, not asking for help. And we went out and we did this very hard event, and we came back, and you had like 12, 13 grown men crying in a room where we went out and we we tore down our ego. Like, there was no ego in finishing this event. There was ego of like, I have to finish it, but I don't ever want to do something like that hard again. So when you go out and you do hard things, you actually find another level of yourself. You get to, especially men, we are the worst, for not sharing emotions. I may or may not have been told that I have a piece of stone somewhere in the middle of my chest. But for sure, I was crying alongside those other, like, men of men. And you know because we went through and we suffered, and we suffered together. And it's probably the closest thing, I think, to combat. There, in combat, we bond in a different way, because we go through some very hard things together. We basically went into combat in that canyon and came out different people, with a much tighter bond. We went in there as strangers and we came out brothers. And again, we cried together for 2 days following that, really kind of pouring into one another. I wish I could find a better word, like a cooler word to say, but and I asked the group, I was like, hey man, what do you think about, like, what language should I use? And they're like, you know what, you just say, like, trust me, you'll find out. And but you have to go and you have to experience the suffering together, and through suffering you build resiliency, and the next thing is not quite as difficult. Through suffering, I let me just try to kind of change the subject a little bit. I have a friend. She was a judge for a beauty pageant a few weekends ago, and she said, most of those girls, they're like suffering from like stress and anxiety, and their life is so hard, and things like that. And it's because their life is so good. I think sometimes we just have to go and do the hard things, experience true adversity, build that resilience, and your life will just be so much better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just thinking about that that collective energy that you just mentioned, like coming together, doing something really hard, feeling emotional in it, bonding over it, being able to choose the language to describe it. Like that just, yeah, it sounds really really wonderful and very, let to use your word, like naked, if you will. And for those of you watching the video, you can see that William's wearing a hat that says get naked. If you can't, he's wearing a hat that says get naked. And that's really his theme, is get naked. How do you get naked, right? So how do you get naked in your sense of the word, of what getting naked really means to you and your brand?
I think that's really what happened. Is originally when I started talking about getting naked, it was about taking my ego off, taking that armor that I'm hiding behind off, so that I can expose myself, become vulnerable, so I can find the healing that I needed. I spent 26 years in the military, most of that time in the SEAL teams, and we don't show emotion, we don't show weakness, we don't show a lot of empathy or anything else. When you go into combat, you put on this armor and you go into harm's way, and sometimes that armor saves your life. But we come back from that mission and we take that armor off, and we rest, we recover, we hit the showers, we get ready for the next mission. But in life, most people never take that armor off. We feel like we're under attack, whether it's from social media, it's from some not so awesome relationship that we've been a part of, whatever it is. And so we end up in wearing this armor, this ego, this baggage around most of our life, and we never take it off. We never become brave enough to ask for help. We never become brave enough to take that ego off, to take that mask that we're hiding behind off, and really become our authentic self. And I'll tell you from personal experience, it's terrifying to really show people your authentic self, to not have this sort of bravado out there that is your who you are. It's not actually who you are. If you were to like take that ego off and that armor off and become your authentic self, you can achieve so much more. These are
Mm-hmm.
self-limiting beliefs that we're hiding behind, and when you get away from those and you just become your authentic self, you will truly become unstoppable. And that's been a lesson that I've had to continue to tell myself over and over and over. And when I listen to myself, it works. And then when I go back to old bad habits, I become self-limiting. But when I get rid of that ego, that armor, or that baggage that I'm carrying around, I just propel forward in life so much faster.
Mm-hmm.